At 1:47 in the morning, a Russian governor sat down and typed the words, "No occupation official ever wants to publish." The day's fuel codes had already run out. Not by evening, not after a long day of queues, by 1:47 a.m., less than 2 hours after the system launched. The lines didn't end, they grew. This was Sevastopol on the night of June 6, 2026, home of the Black Sea Fleet, the city Putin once called Russia's unsinkable aircraft carrier, Russia's proudest military address. It had run out of fuel, and the 60,000 Russian soldiers stationed across Crimea were about to find out exactly what that means for them. Because this crisis didn't appear overnight, it was built methodically, systematically over months, one strike at a time. And to understand how a military peninsula armed with S-400 systems, ammunition depots, and tens of thousands of troops ends up rationing gasoline with QR codes, you have to go back to the beginning of the strategy that got it there. Russia has always understood Crimea's vulnerability. The peninsula sticks out into the Black Sea like a thumb, connected to the mainland by geography that was never designed to support a military occupation of this scale. There are essentially three ways in and out. The Kerch Bridge across the Strait of Kerch in the east, the land corridor running 630 kilometers through southern Ukraine, and the sea, which Russia once controlled and no longer does. Ukraine has spent the last 2 years closing each one. The sea went first. Ukrainian naval drones and missile strikes systematically dismantled the Black Sea Fleet docked at Sevastopol. The flagship Moskva went down in April 2022. Landing ships were destroyed at port. By 2025, fleet losses had exceeded 1/3 of Russia's total Black Sea naval strength, per Oryx open source tracking, and the surviving ships had been quietly relocated from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk, further east, further from Ukrainian range, and far less useful for supplying Crimea. When the fleet retreated, the sea route for resupply effectively closed with it. That pushed everything onto the land corridor and the Kerch Bridge. Then Ukraine went after Kerch. The Kerch Bridge is not just infrastructure. For Russia, it is the physical symbol of the annexation, the 19-kilometer crossing Putin personally inaugurated in 2018. The project that cost $12 billion and was described in Russian state media as an engineering miracle. Russia named it after Putin, which in hindsight may have been the first warning sign. It also happens to be the only fixed crossing between Crimea and Russian-controlled territory. Major attacks in 2022 and 2023 damaged the bridge's road deck and permanently restricted it to lighter vehicle traffic. Heavy cargo, the fuel tankers, ammunition trucks, and armored vehicle transporters that a 60,000-strong garrison needs, could no longer reliably cross. Rail traffic on the bridge continued, but with reduced capacity and under constant threat. On the night of June 7, 2026, Ukraine attempted another strike on Kerch with Neptune anti-ship missiles. Russian air defense claimed to intercept them. Whether that claim holds or not almost doesn't matter. The attempt sent a message that Russia's military commanders in Crimea understood perfectly clearly: Kerch is not safe. It has never been safe. And it is getting less safe every month as Ukraine's long-range strike capability expands. So the land corridor was already absorbing most of the weight that Kerch could no longer carry. Then Ukraine set the corridor on fire. The R280 Novorossiya highway, the main artery running through the land corridor into Crimea, has been turning into a death road since the start of 2026. Ukraine's medium-range kamikaze drones, operating 20 to 300 kilometers behind the front line, began systematically hunting the convoys that use it. The numbers are not abstract. Open source monitoring groups documented the confirmed destruction of more than 125 fuel tankers and military trucks on this single corridor during the month of May alone. 125 in a single month. By the end of May, Crimea's Russian-appointed governor Salo had been forced to sign a decree restricting heavy vehicle movement, meaning the trucks that were supposed to replace the ones being destroyed couldn't even use the main road freely anymore. Ukraine's 3rd Special Purpose Regiment went a step further. It declared air control over a section of the Malinovka to Chongar route, the specific stretch leading into northern Crimea, not just striking targets on it, claiming de facto control over who moves on it. Drones were now functioning as a checkpoint. Russia's convoys had to pass through Ukrainian airspace to reach Crimea. Then, on June 7th, came the strike that closed the last door. Ukraine's Special Operations Forces Medium Strike Units, a structure built specifically for precision point strikes, hit the Kerch Bridge. The bridge spans the Savash Lagoon between the Kherson region and northern Crimea, and had been carrying the bulk of the land corridor's traffic since Kerch was restricted. It wasn't a demolition strike. It didn't need to be. The drone hit the road's surface, riddled the deck with penetration damage, and paralyzed traffic completely. Crimea's appointed governor, Salo, confirmed the attack on his Telegram channel within hours. Russia's own official communications provided the damage assessment. The Jankoy checkpoint was closed. Traffic was rerouted to the Armyansk and Perekop crossings, both further west, both adding 50 to 150 kilometers to every convoy route, and both pushing those convoys through corridors closer to the front line and more exposed to the drones already hunting them. No repair timeline was given. For the soldiers at the end of that supply chain, this is not an abstraction. A Russian infantry unit in the Kherson direction drawing ammunition and fuel from Jankoy doesn't get a briefing about bridge deck damage. It gets told the resupply truck isn't coming today. Then it gets told the same thing the next day. After 10 days, the artillery goes quiet, not because of orders, but because there's nothing left to fire. This is what 60,000 soldiers look like when you cut their supply line. The Jankoy hub, Crimea's central military distribution point where railway junctions, ammunition depots, and fuel terminals all converge, was fed primarily through Kerch. When the bridge closed, Jankoy's resupply line closed with it. And that same night, Ukraine didn't stop at the bridge. The Special Operations Forces struck 2 fuel facilities deep inside the peninsula simultaneously. The first was the Semyonovskaya fuel depot near Lenino, approximately 200 kilometers from the front line, a Soviet-era facility recommissioned after annexation as a military fuel distribution node, dispatching diesel and fuel oil to Russian positions across Crimea via railway tankers. NASA's satellite fire monitoring system confirmed the heat signature expanding after the strike. The fire couldn't be controlled. The second target was larger, the Naval Petroleum Terminal in Feodosia, Crimea's single largest fuel storage complex, with a stated capacity of 250,000 tons. Russia had been using it as a strategic emergency reserve, the backup to be activated precisely when normal resupply was disrupted. Ukraine struck the backup. Drones reached it from approximately 250 kilometers away. Explosions were reported across Feodosia. The ATS guerrilla monitoring network and the Crimean Wind Channel both confirmed the attack. In a single coordinated operation, Ukraine cut the road fuel travels on, destroyed the depot it was stored in, and hit the emergency reserve kept for exactly this scenario. 3 layers, 1 night. The effect on Crimea's streets was almost immediate. On June 4th, 3 days before the Kerch strike, Crimea's head Aksyonov had already halted cash gasoline sales entirely across the peninsula. No coupons for open sale, none available in the near future. He opened a special hotline for tourists who had arrived by car and couldn't find fuel to leave. Nothing says, "Come visit Crimea," quite like a government hotline for people who can't escape it. Hundreds of vacationers, people who had come for a holiday and had no part in any of this, were stranded on a military peninsula with empty tanks and no way home. Priority was assigned to law enforcement and public services. Even that wasn't enough. The 400-vehicle public transit fleet in Sevastopol couldn't secure sufficient fuel to maintain operations. Black market prices rose to 3 times the official rate within days. Retailers began restricting food purchases, not because food had run out, but because the delivery trucks supplying the stores also couldn't find fuel to operate. Then came the night of June 6th and the QR code system. Sevastopol's occupation governor Razvozhayev announced a rationing framework after midnight. Each registered vehicle owner could receive up to 20 liters of fuel once once per week via a personal QR code valid only between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. at designated stations only. Controlled, tracked, limited. At 1:47 a.m. on June 7th, he posted again. The day's allocation of codes had already been exhausted. The lines didn't move, they just kept getting longer. Fuel isn't only what goes in vehicles. The S-400 and Panzer air defense systems deployed across Crimea run on continuous radar operation. Continuous radar operation requires consistent electrical power. In locations where the fixed power grid is insufficient, which is most forward positions, mobile generators fill the gap. Generators run on diesel. When fuel deliveries are delayed, radar operating times get cut, and shorter radar windows mean more Ukrainian drones reaching their targets undetected. More strikes on depots and convoys means longer delays. The cycle tightens with every turn. The air defense protecting Crimea is being degraded by the same fuel shortage the air defense is supposed to prevent from getting worse. This is not an accident. It is the design. Between January and May 2026, Ukraine carried out 38 confirmed attacks on Russian oil refineries. 16 of those hits came in May alone, the highest single-month refinery strike count since the war began. According to Reuters, by mid-May, refineries with a combined daily processing capacity of 238,000 tons, roughly 1/4 of all Russian refining capacity, had suspended operations. Russia's fuel production had already been squeezed before a single drone touched Crimea's depots. The shortfall in production compounded the shortfall in delivery. Both hit Crimea at the same time. Russia still has cards to play, and ignoring them would be a mistake. The Chongar Bridge damage is currently limited to the road deck. No structural collapse, no catastrophic failure of the kind that would require months of reconstruction. Russia has previously compensated for similar damage with pontoon bridges and accelerated repair. After the 2023 Storm Shadow strikes on Chongar, traffic resumed within weeks. The Armyansk and Perekop crossings remain open. As long as they function, complete isolation is not in place. The land corridor is 630 kilometers long and offers multiple entry points that Ukraine has not yet closed simultaneously. Kerch's rail line is still operational. Personnel movements and some ammunition shipments continue. And Russia is adapting its convoy tactics, splitting movements into smaller groups, conducting transfers during nighttime hours, deploying decoy vehicles to confuse drone targeting. These measures are not nothing, but the direction of travel is clear, and it is accelerating. In 2023, striking Chongar required Storm Shadow cruise missiles, expensive, diplomatically sensitive, limited in supply. In 2026, the same bridge can be hit with a kamikaze drone that costs a few $1,000s. Ukraine's domestic drone production is expanding every month. The effective strike range that stood at around 100 kilometers in 2024 had exceeded 300 kilometers by 2026, according to Ukrainian Defense Ministry statements. When Russia finishes repairing the bridge, Ukraine has the capacity to strike it again the following night. The repair cycle takes weeks. The strike cycle takes hours. With every repetition, permanent attrition accumulates, and the resources Russia allocates to repair are being pulled directly away from the front. Russia's own military bloggers are the ones saying it plainest. Pro-Russian commentator Dmitriev wrote that Crimea is a very vulnerable place logistically, and that in past wars, the peninsula has typically turned into a trap for the forces defending it. The Telegram channel Madame Secretary described what is now visible as a quite long and consistent strategy. Clear the sea corridor, degrade the fleet, isolate Crimea, hit the refineries, and now take the highway under fire. These are not Ukrainian analysts making this assessment. They are voices from inside Russia's own information ecosystem. Crimea serves Russia as an air defense platform, a naval base, a command node, a fuel reserve, and a launch point for strikes on southern Ukraine. Each of those functions depends on a continuous logistics chain feeding the peninsula. Ukraine is not trying to storm Crimea with ground forces. It is systematically effectively cutting the chain that makes Crimea function. The fleet retreated and Kerch was restricted. By 2026, the refineries were burning. The land corridor had become a hunting ground, and the depots inside Crimea were on fire. On the streets of Sevastopol, QR codes and midnight queues had replaced the fiction of normal life. Russia's unsinkable aircraft carrier is taking on water. Every ruble spent holding Crimea is a ruble the front line never sees. The repair crews patching Chongar aren't fixing equipment in Zaporizhzhia. They're the same pool of men and machines, just pointed the wrong direction. And every fuel tanker rerouted through Armyansk is spending more hours on the road, burning more fuel to carry fuel in range of the drones already hunting it. The 60,000 soldiers in Crimea are not in immediate danger of running out of ammunition tomorrow. But the corridor is narrowing, the depots are burning, and the fuel lines in Sevastopol start at midnight. They don't need a briefing to know which way this is going. The strategy is not finished, and Russia is running out of time to stop it.